Video games often have their own unique logic that can be both entertaining and frustrating. From jumping over bottomless pits to defeating powerful enemies with a single punch, the rules of video games can sometimes seem downright silly. But that's part of the fun. It's a chance to escape reality and embrace a world where anything is possible, no matter how ridiculous it may seem. So, embrace the stupid logic of video games and enjoy the ride. In this video, we want to take a look at these stupid logics and analyze them. But before that, if you're loving this video, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. By doing so you'll never miss out on our latest videos and you'll be supporting us in creating more awesome content just for you. Some characters are shot hundreds of times in the gameplay and survive but die with one shot in the cutscene. One of the most amusing quirks of video games is the concept of characters who can withstand a barrage of bullets during gameplay, yet perish with a single shot during cutscenes. It's a phenomenon that's been around since the earliest days of gaming, and it never fails to elicit a chuckle or two. In gameplay, characters can take a seemingly endless amount of damage and still come out unscathed. They can jump off buildings, get hit by cars, and survive explosions without so much as a scratch. It's all part of the fun and excitement of playing video games. But then there's the cutscenes. Suddenly, characters who were previously invincible are now vulnerable to a single bullet or a well-placed punch. It's a jarring shift in tone that can be both hilarious and frustrating at the same time. Of course, this is all done in the name of storytelling. Developers want to create tension and drama during cutscenes. And having characters suddenly become mortal is a quick and effective way to do that. It's also a way to remind players that the stakes are high, and that anything can happen. Despite its absurdity, this trope has become a beloved part of video game culture. It's a reminder that video games are first and foremost a form of entertainment, and that we shouldn't take them too seriously. So the next time you're playing a game and your character seems invincible, just remember, anything can happen in the cutscenes. 2. Destructible objects in the real world block your path in the game. One of the most frustrating aspects of video games is when destructible objects in the real world block your path in the game. Whether it's a flimsy wooden fence or a stack of cardboard boxes. It can be infuriating to be stopped in your tracks by an object that should be easy to move or break in real life. This lack of consistency between the real world and the game world can take away from the immersive experience of the game. Players want to feel like they're truly in control of their character and their environment, and being stopped by objects that should be easily breakable can be a major letdown. Game developers need to be mindful of this aspect of gameplay and ensure that their games are consistent with the real world. If an object should be easily breakable in real life, it should be easily breakable in the game world as well. That being said, there are some games that do a great job of balancing the destructibility of objects. For example, in the Battlefield series, players can destroy walls and buildings with explosives, but not all objects can be destroyed, adding a sense of realism and strategy to the gameplay. 3. Carrying hundreds of heavy items in inventory. One of the most unrealistic aspects of video games is the ability to carry hundreds of heavy items in inventory. Whether it's endless amounts of weapons, armor, and potions in a fantasy RPG, or stacks of building materials in a survival game. The ability to carry all of these items without any negative consequences can be downright ridiculous. This lack of realism can take away from the immersive experience of the game. Players want to feel like they're truly in the game world. And being able to carry more items than humanly possible can be a major letdown. Game developers need to be mindful of this aspect of gameplay and ensure that their games are consistent with real-world limitations. if a character can only realistically carry a certain amount of weight. The game should reflect that. That being said, there are some games that do a great job of balancing inventory limitations with gameplay. For example, in The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, characters have a limited amount of inventory space, and carrying too much weight will slow them down, making it more difficult to move around and fight. 4. Some characters are equipped with a special type of vision. Video games are full of characters with unique abilities. And some of them are blessed with a special kind of vision that allows them to see through walls and detect enemies from afar. While this may seem like an overpowered ability, it can actually be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can give players a significant advantage over their enemies, allowing them to plan their attacks and avoid ambushes. On the other hand, it can make the game feel less challenging and immersive, as players can simply rely on their character's abilities to get through the game. To strike a balance, game developers need to ensure that these abilities are not overused and that they don't take away from the overall experience of the game. Instead, they should be considered as just one of many tools in a player's arsenal, rather than a crutch that they rely on to progress. 5. The enemy's lack of attention and recognition towards their missing teammates and comrades whom we apparently killed. One of the most frustrating aspects of video games is the lack of attention that enemies seem to pay to their fallen comrades. You've probably experienced this yourself. You take out an enemy, and their buddies act like nothing happened, carrying on with their patrol like nothing is amiss. It's especially frustrating when it comes to missing teammates or lost friends. In some games, you may have accidentally left them behind, or they may have gotten separated from the group. But the enemies seem to have no awareness of their presence, leaving you feeling like you're playing in a vacuum. Game developers need to be mindful of this aspect of gameplay and ensure that enemies are programmed to react appropriately to their surroundings. After all, it can be a major immersion breaker when you're trying to enjoy a game, only to be constantly reminded of its limitations. 6. Take shelter behind various objects to recover your health bar. Taking cover behind objects to recover your health is a classic feature in many video games. But let's face it, it can be a little silly at times. You're in the middle of a heated battle, and suddenly you're hiding behind a trash can, waiting for your health to slowly regenerate. It can feel like a cheap tactic to stay alive. While taking cover is a legitimate strategy in real-life combat situations, in video games it can sometimes feel like an unrealistic and overpowered way to heal yourself. It can also take away from the immersive experience of the game, making players feel like they're not really in danger. Game developers need to be mindful of this aspect of gameplay and ensure that taking cover for health recovery is balanced and not overpowered. Players should be rewarded for their skill and tactics, rather than simply hiding behind objects and waiting for their health to regenerate. 7. The protagonists never get tired and have almost infinite stamina. One of the most common tropes in video games is the seemingly limitless stamina and energy of the protagonists. No matter how many enemies they face or how long they run, the heroes never seem to get tired or need a break. It can feel like they're superhuman, and the lack of realism can take away from the immersive experience of the game. However, game developers need to strike a balance between realism and gameplay mechanics. After all, players want to feel powerful and in control when they're playing as the protagonist, and it can be frustrating to be limited by a stamina meter or forced to take breaks. That being said, there are some games that do a great job of balancing the strength of their protagonists. For example, in the Assassin's Creed series, the protagonists may have great physical abilities, but they still need to rest and recover after intense battles. In The Last of Us, the protagonists can only run for a limited amount of time before becoming exhausted, which adds a sense of realism and strategy to the gameplay. Game developers need to be mindful of this aspect of gameplay and ensure that the protagonist's stamina is balanced and not overpowered. Players should be rewarded for their skill and tactics, rather than simply relying on the protagonist's infinite energy to succeed. Did you enjoy this video? If so, don't be shy and give it a thumbs up. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and join our community. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you're always in the loop. We also suggest you to watch the video that will be placed on the screen because we think it will be interesting for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.